I want to lead off this video by saying I've been mispronouncing Teshi's name. I've been saying Tashi. Apparently it's Teshi. I'm a big idiot. So forgive me. I'm gonna try remembering going forward that it's Teshi. Today's video is about this. I see Teshi get asked sometimes, would she ever do an animated BCB adaptation? And the answer is always, well, if I got the team together, I would do it. And it's made me wonder, if there was a BCB adaptation, what exactly would that be like? How would you go about doing it? And I think that there are two ways to go about doing this, and the second way has two ways of going about doing that, but we'll get there. The first way, and the most obvious and probably the best way to go about doing it, is having it be a streaming series. BCB is a long form story. There are a lot of characters and stories and concepts that would lend itself well to a streaming format. Unfortunately, it seems like a lot of streaming services have cut back on the amount of animation content that they're producing, so that might not be the best fit for right now. Honestly, that would be the best fit in general for this story. Essentially, what I would do personally is adapt chapters 1 through 14, which is going to be a running theme for this video, so just hold on tight. Have all that stuff finally ended off with confrontation, because one, it kind of ends off a little bit on a cliffhanger as far as Mike and Lucy's relationship, but I think it also encapsulates everything that makes the comic great and is a great climax to everything that had happened previously, what with Mike and Lucy's relationship and Paulo and Daisy and their dynamic, and finally facing a serious threat for once. The second way that I would go about doing it is a theatrically released movie. We could do a straight adaptation of the comic, just like the streaming series, where you would take chapters 1 through 14, have the big climax be confrontation, and end it there. However, if that were the whole video, it would be very short. Everyone knows the story of chapter 1 through 14. I propose the second way we could go out doing a movie is coming up with a whole new story for the characters. Taking a few of the characters, giving them all arcs, and pulling plot elements and story from the comic and wrapping it up in a nice little bow that takes place over the course of an hour and a half to 2 hours. Without further ado, this is what I would do with a BCB movie adaptation. Right out of the gate, we gotta pick our main characters, and there are a ton of BCB characters to pick from, including Mike, Lucy, Paulo, Daisy, David, Sue, Amaya, Blur, Yashi, Chirpy, or Amber, Lily, Haley, Chris, Jordan, Sam, Zachary, Catherine, Katie, Stacy, Jasmine, Abby, McCain, Sandy, Francis, Rachel, Matt, Max, James, Lucas, Felix, Jessica, Madison, Tess, Roger, Toby, Alejandro, Augustus, Melanie, Janet, Kevin, Molly, Mina, Dan, hand down his pants guy, the street salesman, the Sandy lookalike, the sex ed teacher, the gym teacher, the other gym teacher, Mr. Noodles, Mike's mom, Mike's dad, Lucy's mom, Lucy's dad, Daisy's mom, Daisy's dad, Paulo's dad, Sue's mom, Sandy's mom, Abby's dad, Miranda, Dylan, Tiff, Cassidy, Darwin, Finn, Lonnie. And that doesn't even account for all the decanonized fan characters like Carter, Carson, Kazuna, Larkin, Liam, Koo. As you can see, we have a ton to choose from, but to keep things simple, we're gonna stick to just 6. They may stand up when I call their names. Lucy, Mike, Paulo, Daisy, David, and go ahead and type in the comment section who you think the last character will be. Go ahead, pause the video, do what you gotta do. Did you get it? Okay, and finally, Sue. Because Sue is best girl, would pet, and tell her I'm proud. And naturally, some of the side characters are going to make appearances. We can't have a BCB movie without Amaya, but as far as the main ones are concerned, each will have their own arcs and things to do in the story. Let me break it all down. These are going to be very similar to what they are in the comic. For Mike,
He'll be pining over his long-distance crush, Sandy. He has this grand idea of who she is in his head, though it's been years since they've seen each other. He is sometimes neglectful to his friends, especially Lucy, in favor of her. Has to learn to be more appreciative of the people around him and learn to love the ones he's with. Lucy is secretly in love with Mike. She wants to work up the courage to tell him how she feels, but is afraid to be rejected, and his feelings for Sandy make it harder for her. She is abrasive towards him, even though she doesn't really mean it. Lucy has to learn to be nicer and work up the courage to tell Mike how she feels. Paulo, he wants to have a bunch of summer flings, goes through girl after girl, and eventually this blows up in his face. Has to learn to respect the feelings of others and not see girls just as objects to go through, and to get more in touch with his vulnerable side. Daisy is not very confident in herself and is a little immature, wants to prove herself, but her not being confident holds her back. She has to learn to be confident with herself. Sue is a little go-getter who wants to put on a play. She can be bossy and a perfectionist, and it drives people away from her. She has to learn to play nice with others and accept compromises and collaboration. And finally, David is the comic relief who takes nothing seriously and makes it hard for others to connect with him. Nobody takes him serious, and he has to learn to not make everything into a joke, and that there is a time and place for everything. With all that being said, what will the movie actually be about? School is out and summer is in. Everyone has big plans for the summer, which will take place between their 8th grade and 9th grade year. Sue wants to put on a play with her friends. Mike wants to finally reconnect with his long-distance crush Sandy. Lucy wants to tell Mike how she feels about him. Paulo wants to flirt with a bunch of girls. Daisy wants to prove herself to everyone, and David just kinda pulls pranks the whole time. We lift a few chapters from Volume 1, and we'll be de-retconning Alejandro and Toby being the bullies that made Paulo afraid of barking. This will tie in at the end. The story is primarily focused on Mike and Lucy. The harder Lucy tries to talk to Mike about how she feels, the harder she fails. She picks fights and calls him names and so on. This pushes Mike away and closer to Sandy. Mike does show signs of possibly liking her early on, but her aggressiveness is getting in the way of his feelings. He even admits as much to Paulo or Daisy, I'm not really sure who. Meanwhile, everyone is cast in Sue's play, and Sue is being a complete control freak. People get grumbly and want to quit, and Sue can't understand why. She blames everyone else. Daisy keeps trying to go above and beyond and stumbles over herself because of her anxiety. Paulo is just flirting with every girl, bragging about being a star. Every girl but Daisy, which makes her feel even worse. There are a few moments the two have alone where Paulo talks about his emotions, like his fear of barking. In turn, Paulo helps her try to be more confident. This builds a genuine connection between the two. David pulls pranks on everyone, much to Sue's dismay, as it disrupts rehearsals and makes her more demanding of everyone. This annoys everyone else too. The second act low point, Sue's play is falling drastically behind and the play date is rapidly approaching. Mike and Lucy have had a huge blowout and aren't talking. Mike also finds out Sandy has been seeing another guy. All the girls Paulo flirted with come back to haunt him.
I should probably throw in here that none of these girls realized that Paulo was flirting with multiple different girls. Like, Katie believed that she was the only one Paulo was flirting with, and so on.
They bruise Paulo's ego by calling him a womanizer and a bad kisser, and they beat him up and all sorts of things. However, Daisy is caught up in the crossfire. They understandably see her as Paulo's next quote-unquote victim, and try to convince her none of his words mean anything, destroying her confidence and making her unable to perform. Nobody wants anything to do with David because of all the pranks and jokes. And nobody wants to do Sue's play because of how much of a tyrant she's being over it. In other words, everything is mad screwed up. Nobody has gotten what they wanted, and the summer is nearly over. It all comes to a head when they get lost in the big city and are cornered in an alley by Alejandro and Toby, who overhear their arguing. David runs his mouth, making jokes and making things worse for everyone. Alejandro and Toby demand money, bully them, so on and so forth. They're just general assholes to them. Everyone steps up to the plate to protect each other like in Confrontation. After Alejandro and Toby are scared off, it ends pretty similarly to how Confrontation does. The following day, Mike has his little talk to Lucy and they kiss, but this time she finally admits that she has feelings for him. Mike is surprised, but smiles and says he has feelings for her too. Paulo and Daisy have a heartfelt conversation. He tells her he really meant every word he said to her, though he admits he was a bad guy. Daisy assures him she thinks he is not so bad. Maybe Maybe they walk off hand in hand, showing a potential relationship between the two. David, after going through such a serious situation that he mainly caused, pulls himself up by his bootstraps and helps Sue finish setting up the play, getting everyone back together in time to get it done. The play is put on, it's a huge success, and that's the end.
So, with all of that being said, what do you guys think of my BCB movie idea? Would you want to see something like this, or do you have another idea? Like I said at the beginning of this video, the most optimal thing to do would be to make it an animated series adapting the comic one-to-one. Sadly, this movie does wrap up a lot of the loose ends of the comic, which means it really would be difficult to do a sequel, considering the Mike and Lucy and Paulo and Daisy thing have been sort of tied up, but I'm sure there's something that could be come up with for a potential sequel. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you all next time.